Welcome back to the BJJ Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ford. My guest today is a third-degree black belt in judo. He's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was the Team USA Olympic coach for judo. He's also a USA Judo World Team coach. He was a Division I wrestler out of the University of Nebraska, and he was an All-American. He was also a California State wrestling champion in high school, the first from his high school to ever win a championship at state. Some of his judo accomplishments include a three-time USA National Champion, a two-time winner of the Best Technique Award, a two-time U.S. Open champion, a Puerto Rican Open champion, Ontario International Open champion. He was also the head judo coach for former UFC bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey, and he's coached in 3 successful UFC championship fights. He's also the grappling coach of current UFC star Paddy Pimblett. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be joined today for the second time in my podcasting career by Coach Justin Flores. How are you today, Justin?
I'm great, Ryan. Thanks for having me on again. Humbled and honored to just talk with you and share stories about grappling and where we come and where we intertwine.
Excellent. No, it's truly an honor. It's truly an honor to have you back on the show, man. I think that we were just talking off air. The last time I interviewed you was 2017. So it's been a minute, man. It's been a little while. So, man, catch us up. What have you been up to since then?
So since then, I received my Jiu-Jitsu black belts a few years after that. I was the Olympic team coach for Team USA and USA Judo, where we went to Tokyo a year late. It was the 2021 Olympics. So there was some hard hurdles there to go through to have a team that would be able to qualify for the games itself, and then a staff to put together for that. And it was kind of makeshifty as far as like the normal quad goes, because we added an extra year and then things were kind of disassembled, and it all came together at the end and it worked out. But what else? I had a daughter. My daughter's now 2.5 years old.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. You might hear a couple screams in the background. Nothing different from any other 2.5-year-old, though. My son's 6. Yeah, my son is 6. And, just the same old every day. I'm teaching on the mat, or I'm shooting videos for my website, or, I'm fielding questions from questionnaires around the world and trying to grow my brand, as well as trying to supply a needed portal for takedowns for grapplers that of all walks of life, of all grappling disciplines or MMA, what have you. So I'm trying to kind of expand in that manner.
That's awesome. Well, man, I'm super happy for all your success, man. Congratulations on becoming a father. You're already a father, but on the new edition, congratulations on that. And obviously, I'm sure you've already assumed what I'm going to pick your brain about today. You mentioned that you're very passionate and you're a great resource for adding takedowns into all forms of grappling. You've got a tremendously successful background in wrestling as well as judo. So, I would love to pick your brain today about that. So,
sure.
Obviously, Justin, many jiu-jitsu practitioners are working to improve their standing game, especially if they compete. And wrestling and judo are both great options for jiu-jitsu players to add to their game. And so, man, I'd love to pick your brain about judo in particular, if you don't mind today. So I'll start by asking you one of the most fundamental concepts in judo, which is tai sabaki. For those that are not familiar with it, what exactly is tai sabaki and why is it so important?
So tai sabaki, I think it breaks down to full body movement is the actual definition, but that can be interpreted a bunch of different ways. What I kind of like to do is when I'm pulling and I'm dragging and I'm cutting angles and I'm creating possible openings, I'm also probing for deficiencies or reactions that are happening simultaneous to my body movement and how I'm pulling or pushing you in a certain direction, where it might create an opening where I'll then need Kazushi, a balance break, to create that opening. So there's layers of it, and it can be broken down differently, and different people have different definitions of these things. What I kind of like to break it into is how it falls into all forms of grappling, whether it's on the ground or standing. It's how you create openings and you put chinks in armors by creating deficiencies, off balances by your own movement. And you can move a lot and not move your opponent, and it's not going to do much. So it's actually figuring out a way for them to redistribute their weight, and that's by either setting traps or just pulling them. So there's a lot to it, and I almost liken it to a dance, where it should feel like there's a rhythm and a tempo to it, where you're on the balls of your feet, you're mobile, you're not like heavy and dense and set like bricks to the ground. You actually have qualities of jump roping involved in your normal movement when you're fighting for takedowns.
That's an outstanding. I really appreciate that description, man. That's a very clear description. When it comes to people applying how to understand and use that, what are some of your favorite ways to teach? I know in judo, a lot of times we see people using those 2 strips of tape on the mat. There's usually an X or a cross. For people that haven't ever done any kind of footwork in judo or anything like that, what's the best way to develop that?
So I have an uncle. His name is Mario Rubio. He was an 1984 Olympic alternate at 60 kilos, and he's about 5'2". Super short guy, but always someone that was stronger and larger than life in my eyes growing up. He had all these little drills broken down when we were younger. My brother and I would get shipped up there every summer for a month or two, and we would wake up 6 a.m. with 80s, 70s music blaring, and we'd have a whole system of how we're going to warm up, and then we're going to do judo. And the warm-ups all consisted of these footwork drills. And one of them I still use, or a couple of them I still use with my students today, Rubio's, where you're switching your hips, you're rotating, you're light on your feet. There's a line between your feet. And it's something on my website or pretty prevalently known where you could find these resources. But there's a bunch of jump roping-like movements, and some of them contain zigs and zags. Other of them are 1 foot is heavy, 1 foot is light. And you have to be able to master that yourself without really looking down. And that's proprioception. That's being able to function in a way where you know where your body is without looking at it, or being able to feel that opening and covering the space you need to enter for a throw. Those are all things that are going to be sensed by doing these types of drills, where you have to have a partner in some of them you don't need a partner. It just helps for that spatial awareness to have a partner for some of these drills. And it's hard to just talk about. It's easier to see. So
sure. I'll leave it at that. I definitely appreciate you breaking this down verbally. I know it's not always the easiest thing to do on a podcast with some of these concepts. Another thing that I can see there too is something that people new to judo would struggle with is just the balance, like keeping your balance, moving and using tai sabaki properly, while keeping yourself balanced and not leaning too far over center lines and things like that. Yeah. Is that something? What do you typically recommend people do to, I guess, have better control over their overall balance?
Well, so different than judo, wrestling, most shots are taken off both feet. Most wrestling attacks are done with your arms. Sure. Of course, there's deviations, but this is generalizing a sport. I would say the highest percentage shots are taken with maybe 1 foot a little lighter than the other foot, but both feet are grounded. And your arms are the kind of the tool or the crutch that you're using to implement that takedown. Whereas in judo, I think mastering both 1 foot and 2-footed balance while entering for a takedown is more important than wrestling, where you're going to be having 2 hands on your partner possibly, and you have to balance on 1 foot while executing a takedown. So there's a little bit more stability in your strong leg. So if I'm a lefty, I'm a left-handed, I'm going to need my right leg to be the one that has the source of balance. That's my supporting foot. So when I do throws like uchimata or foot sweeps or any reaping throw, it's my left leg, the one with better proprioception, the one that has better coordination, that I'm going to use alongside my hip and pull to do those kind of takedowns. But it's my right leg. That's the supporting foot that needs to have really good balance. So understanding a few concepts where your hips, your head, and your foot are in alignment rather than leaning, so that you could hop rather than step. So those kind of things, it takes time to drill. I mean, you could probably perform it within 30 minutes, how to execute a throw. If you practice all the right things and you trim all the fat, all the excess movements, and you can probably function with a good uchimata in 30 minutes. But it's then going out and doing it on the worlds. That's the hard part. It's like training the reps every day and being able to find setups, understand different opponents have different reactions. So it's like a thing that's you're always going to grow from and learn more about different people and those different entries, and your body's going to change. So you need to understand that you might not have a good ankle to support your weight. So you have to change throws. And now 2-footed throws come into play. Taitoshi, Seonagi, Koshiguruma, Ogoshi, these types of throws, you're going to be able to put a 1-footed throw together with a 2-footed throw. So, it gets complicated, but I say start with 1-footed balance. Just do foot sweeps on 1 foot, do foot sweeps on the other foot. Understand balance, bending over, lifting your leg, all on 1 foot. And once you have the strength and small muscles that are conditioned well enough to create balance and confidence in exploding through that 1 foot that's balanced on the mat, holding an opponent's weight and your weight simultaneously, then you've mastered it. That's the hard part, though. It's like threading a needle. A lot of wrestling takedowns, a blast double, you could go tackle them, and you're like, what are we talking about? What do we need all this nuance and very small movements to figure out to understand how to thread that needle when you could just tackle someone? Well, you could probably only tackle someone for about 6 to 8 years until your back, your shoulder, your knees go. So trying to figure out what's most efficient, and rather than being a bulldozer sometimes, is the long game. And that's what, jiu-jitsu is to me in the grappling sport. And all of the grappling disciplines, I would say jiu-jitsu is the one you could do the longest. Your body will fail, but you'll find a new way. And the sport is broad enough, or the martial art is broad enough to where you could find a specific style that suits your body or your strengths even. Whereas judo, it kind of is what it is. Like, you're stalling if you're not attacking. If you can't get a good grip, you're doing negative judo and you're stalling. Like there's so many fail safes in the rules that are now built in to create an exciting sports rather than like a fighting martial art that it's hard to do until you're old. Then I think wrestling has similar drawbacks. Whereas jiu-jitsu, you could like play off your back. Sure, you'll get smashed and you'll find your ways of injury down under people, but you don't have to fight the same way for that initial score and takedown that gets you to the next round. Where you could use a subsection of wrestling and judo within jiu-jitsu and it'll transfer beautifully if you're taught right. If you go learn the whole discipline of wrestling or the whole discipline of judo, it takes a lifetime in itself. It's hard to okay, these are the 7 core tenets I need to move into my jiu-jitsu, which is going to help me flourish there, utilizing those core concepts, rather than I learn this whole discipline. So what I try and do is save people the time and energy where I'm going to strip away what isn't needed, unless you want to be an Olympic champion in sport judo, what is applicable in jiu-jitsu, at least from my perspective and what I've seen over my 30 years in the sport, as well as wrestling. So you don't need to, wrestle and in jiu-jitsu the same style where you go through an opponent and you break them after a certain amount of time and you have heavy hands and the next thing you know they're just giving you points because they're exhausted. It doesn't really work that way. So you got to figure out what thin slices transfer over.
Yeah, that was an excellent breakdown, man. There's actually several things you said there that I really appreciated. One was that you emphasized the importance of taking the time to refine your motions and really refine. You said trim the fat. That's a perfect description. Yeah. Trim the fat on motions. Get them refined to where they're really crisp and clean. I also appreciate the fact that you pointed out the difference between doing something with a cooperating partner and then going out and applying it to the rest of the world, because that certainly is a whole other facet of learning a technique.
You need those feel good moments within growth, where it's like, positive reinforcement and helping all the little steps along the way. Because I like to compartmentalize these movements within a move. So you have to learn these finer aspects until the collective parts equals, success in live goes or tournaments or however, I can name drop a million people. I've taught different ways how to do different throws, and that all kind of work with their best attributes or how they just function, whether they're super flexible or inflexible or tall or short or, all those little things kind of work its way into how I'm teaching these students.
That's excellent. Yeah, and it's funny because it really resonates with me right now, because I recently picked up boxing again for the first time since I was like a teenager, and working with a great coach. And we started out hitting pads and stuff like you do for the first couple months, and I started feeling really good. Then we started sparring, just me and him. And now I'm like, dude, just stop moving so I can punch you in the face, man.
To keep growing in your 30s, I'm assuming, it's not easy. I mean, I took maybe 15 striking privates in my life, and I know it's not for me. I mean, unless I really want to dedicate my life to it, because that's kind of how I roll. I want to understand distance and range and these things to help me become a better grappling coach for MMA. But, me learning those skills myself are going to be super difficult because I've spent a lifetime creating instincts that happen in the moment that are going to gravitate towards grappling and my best chance of getting a takedown or a submission. So I have to rewire some things. And that's the hardest part with a lot of fighters. A lot of people have their core instincts unless I get them when they're young. It's like, how do we add a thing or two? And I've done that with a lot of fighters. It's like 1 or 2 little things within their game that's going to help them, 5% in their overall game, rather than let's revamp your whole skill set and turn you into someone else. where I feel like there's a time and place for that, and it's usually in your teenage years. So it's hard for, to get a 36-year-old fighter and be like, let's revamp you. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. So
it's tough. For sure. Well, there's something else you said there too that I wanted to zoom in on. You mentioned how attributes that a particular person has can determine what routes they go and what skills they develop and techniques they develop. You mentioned your uncle, for example, Sensei Rubio, that he was real short. He was like 5'2", but obviously he was a very successful. He was a judo Olympic alternate, so he was obviously very successful. Yeah. For people who are on the shorter scale and the taller scale, what techniques do you find each one of those groups tend to gravitate towards?
Yeah, I mean, it's different for groundwork and standing. I think leverage plays a big part, and being taller, has its own set of that, like, skills. If you learn, you're going to be able to accomplish things and get to a higher space in the sport of judo, at least, like having a good uchimata. You don't have to fight for the inside as much. You could come over the back. Sure. Having two hands to get a sleeve and a lapel is much easier when you have that length. You could reach farther away for the sleeve to have two-handed control, so you could execute techniques easier. You don't have to get underneath people, which is something short people like me have had to do my whole career, to be able to get under their full, underneath their belt line, so I could throw them. With your taller, you could stay on the outside and use different angles of attack rather than getting underneath. So you don't have to travel as far, so to speak. And on the ground, separating judo and jiu-jitsu, it's like when I'm on top of a tall person, I always feel in danger. I feel like it's like I'm always just like a morsel or a hair from being swept. Yeah. It's like just I have good flexibility, and I use that to my benefit against people that are dangerous underneath me, and I'm able to kind of stay sticky with a toe on the mat or a finger or whatever. So flexibility helps me kind of stay wet blanketed on top rather than having to roll over and succumb to a sweep. So it's watching someone drill, fight, or spar, and then coming up with okay, here's where I think you could learn to find some shortcuts, or here's where you can progress, or here's where we need to stop doing these things. So it's just more like learning about who I'm teaching, and then having that conversation about, okay, here's what I think, and then what do you want to do about these things? And I have a plethora of different types of grapplers or fighters that I have to kind of wear those different hats for. It's not all single one size fits all, especially I'm going coach at Olympic Judo, and then 2 weeks later I'm cornering an MMA fight. It was really difficult to okay, we have to do these things, we have to do these things. So I have to totally switch gears. But these fighters I've worked with a long time, like an Angela Hill, she's fighting Mackenzie Dern on, let's say, for tomorrow. So we've been working a lot on a few things, and staying out of those things, but knowing what to do if you're in those things. So it's let's just thread a needle, never go here, but if you're here, we'll be fine. So this camp has been dedicated towards almost defensive jiu-jitsu and looking to get out, dodge, and keep punching someone and kicking someone.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's a great approach, man. I love hearing all the strategies and the ways that coaches approach these kinds of situations. And it's interesting how you can go, like you said, in a matter of weeks, from coaching a major judo event to all of a sudden a major MMA fight, and it's two completely different arenas, but still your expertise applies to both. So that's really cool.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, I do miss being on the road as much as I used to be, but having 2 kids, and I do, a little bit long for it, but I know my place as a father right now. I have 2 kids. It's hard to travel every week. And for a while there I'd be in Budapest, Hungary, and then I'd be the next weekend at a UFC event, and then I'd go back to the judo, and then back and forth between these different worlds, where it's kind of a whirlwind when I know I'm needed at home with 2 kids. So
I definitely know that struggle. One of the updates, so since you and I spoke last, I've actually had 2 myself. So it's the same, and obviously I'm not traveling the world like you are and stuff, but it really does. It puts
I'm sure there's its own set of challenges being in Brazil.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah, it is. Something else you said there too about tall people, dealing with tall people. That's been always one of the banes of my existence in jiu-jitsu is when you deal with a tall, lanky person that has some good skill, like on the ground, dealing with the like spider guards and things like that.
Totally.
And then standing, like I always walk right into like Georgian grips, like I've had a few different guys that just get to that, just effortlessly get to that Georgian grip on the back of my gi, and it's a struggle, man. So I appreciate you laying out that for for different attributes there are different options that can be real easy to get to. So.
Totally. Yeah. So it's understanding each round is its own set of reality rather than like, well, that guy beat that guy and I beat that guy, so I should beat that. Like, there's no formula for this. There's so many variables in a sport like jiu-jitsu, where that MMA, judo, wrestling, math, where there's a limited number of variables, where sometimes you could go that route and be like, well, I beat that guy and that guy beat that guy, so I could beat C. Like A beats B, B beats C, so I beat C. Where in jiu-jitsu, it's not the case. I mean, people have so many different styles. So whether they're tall or short, or it's no gi or gi, it's its own set of trials and tribulations where you got to be able to figure it out. And that's what I love about this, where judo, I could almost go on autopilot and like, just figure it out by instinct. Whereas jiu-jitsu, like I'll lose and then I'll have to come back the next week or a couple days later with that same person and like have to make those adaptations, which that's the fun part, really. That's the growth. That's, filling in new neural pathways in my brain and feeling like, okay, this is still not a journey I've finished. Where I get world-class killers every Monday and Thursday at Legion that I run a class. It's a no-gi wrestling takedown class, but we'll do 20 minutes of jiu-jitsu at the tail end with the takedown. So there's no guard play, no guard pulling. So you can play guard after you get taken out and stuff, but we got to fight for that takedown. And I'll get heavy-handed wrestlers or more jiu-jitsu style people that were just free-for-alling. So it's good to learn through those trials and tribulations, but start in a place where I feel like you have to grow these wrestlers as a cultural adaptation. I want to be able to help wrestling and judo become more vibrant within the sport of jiu-jitsu, where there's more application and less just like sitting to your butt right when the match starts. So it's like having that first line of defense, whether that's shooting and sprawling, whether that's gripping and ripping, whether that's judo or wrestling style, is something that it's that first wall where you could sense a lot about an opponent and even tire them by just a little grip fighting or a little hand fighting, a little fakes, where that is a lot in jiu-jitsu. That's enough to like have a good stand-up game. And within that, that'll force people to compromise their position and maybe give up bad position. And then you have a line of succession towards your control and submission. So on Mondays and Thursdays, that's kind of what we're doing at Legion. It's got people like Keenan, Cornelius, who kind of hired me for that job. And it's brought in all sorts of world-class killers, and it's kind of my favorite thing to do every week.
That's amazing. That's so cool, man. I love that you're able to be in a position where you're able to be exploring all that stuff and applying all your knowledge into the world of jiu-jitsu. And it sounds like it's a mutually beneficial thing. You're helping the game, and you're obviously providing tremendous knowledge to all the guys in the rooms. That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
Another important concept in judo that you hinted at earlier. We were talking about tai sabaki before, but obviously Kazushi is another thing that's really, really important to understand if you're going to play judo well. It's also super applicable to jiu-jitsu, obviously. It's Kazushi, for the people that don't know, it's the art of off-balancing your opponent. What do you think are some of the most easy to understand rules that you like to teach beginners when they first learn about how to generate Kazushi?
Yeah, so I think it's easier to explain or relate to Kazushi when we're standing, and then when we're on the ground, it's kind of an easier concept to grasp. So on our feet, the most basic Kazushi is just a pull to get someone from their flat-footed to their balls of their feet. And that, like, you see like high-level judoka that are Olympic champions and beginners do the same like warm-up, fitting in, where it's not the most realistic application of techniques, but it's really installing a twitch and a pull, which is going to create an opening for any move. Like it's hard to just like explode through someone whose base is really heavy and has a sturdy stance, strong, and has done their whole life not to get thrown. That's what judo is. So when you see these high level throws at the world's Olympics, high level judo events, these are the best people in the world. So there's a lot at risk. It may seem simple, like that's it, the match is over, the dude just slipped and fell on his back, that's it. It's like, well, That's the goal. So people are trying their hardest not to let that happen. So it's harder than you would think. So all those skills that have been learned throughout someone's life culminate into this like 20-year-old to 30-year-old endeavor in the international judo scene. So you see like the same people doing basic uchikomi to warm up as you do a blue belt or a green belt adolescent or kid do judo. So those, like, being able to break someone's balance and pull them off balance is like paramount to any throw working. You could force something, but it's probably going to have this maki komi effect where you're going to fall and you're going to pull them on top of you and you're going to hope that you could roll and then they'll fall and you'll get like a bad score in judo, where I don't like that at all. I'm not a fan of that for wrestling, for jiu-jitsu, because you're going to expose yourself to a bad position. You're going to show your back too long. You're going to give up position in the big picture rather than get a minor score in judo. And that's where like the sportified version of judo isn't that, it's hard to cross over using that straight for jiu-jitsu, because a lot of the takedowns and groundwork aren't the full art. They're like half an art because it's been sportified for entertainment purposes. So like learning to pull and twitch can cross over really easy for wrestling and for jiu-jitsu. For wrestling, like the sleeve lapel can be an underhook and a wrist, or a whizzer and a wrist. And your lever for the lapel is to pull that whizzer upwards instead of just turning it. Like in wrestling, you learn a whizzer kick, which is like a bastardized version of an uchimata. And it's not taught in a way where it's putting someone lighter on their feet. It's more of a turn and a push and a grind, and you hope that they succumb because you are stronger willed, or you know, but the technical side of it, there's no lift or off balance. It's more of just like a hard turn where their shoulder and your shoulder are both paying the ultimate price. Whereas the way I teach it is you're lifting your shoulder and you're pulling your far hand. So you're kind of like have these two elbows bowed out as you're turning and giving up a part of your back for a split second to lift your leg, whether that's Harai Goshi or Uchimata. So it's just that repetition and drill has to be done multiple times just to have it ingrained, rather than you just turning and lifting your leg. Because if it's missing the component of the off balance, you know, you better be really explosive and strong.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well,
so it's like risk versus reward there. You know, you got, if you practice something over and over and over and over, when you do it, you got to do it the same way. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to put my foot in the deep end and hope it works. No, it's not. So that's true. It's like taking like a leap of faith with a lot of these judo techniques, where it seems a lot safer to shoot a double or a single leg or snap people, or do these techniques that are a little easier to learn and you don't have to do them perfectly. But a lot of those are going to put you in harm's way as well. So there's no perfect answer. There's no cheat code, so to speak, where you could like plug into the matrix and do 10,000 reps and then go out there in the, you know, in the wild and do these moves in live goes or tournaments. You got to put in the time and do all those little things. And that's why it's like, I'm trying to do it in a way and teach the masses or individuals the same way, where those components are taught in a way where they could as well teach them and do them in a way where it's proficient and not like, well, that was a waste of time, that 2 hours I spent trying to learn this move. And that's like always the dance I'm doing, whether I post something online and I have 50 people that say that won't work. It's like, well, maybe for you who didn't try it and practice it for 10 years, it's something that you can make anything work. There's rules. Those rules are meant to be broken. It depends on how good you get. Like never reach back. Like these rules are meant to be broken. It's just how good are you? Like the best can do a cartwheel with no hands and take your back.
Right.
It's like, okay, I get it. If you're a blue belt, you're not going to do those techniques. And that's where it's like, you know, I show up to seminars sometimes and I want to show the most basic things, but I'll leave the end for questions and I'll do some craziness. It's just like, this isn't what's going to work for most of you, because you're not me and you're not people that are younger than me that have perfected these techniques, that have good knees and necks that work to hang out on your head or whatever. So it's like, you know, I'm done fighting those internet battles sometimes, and sometimes I'll get aggravated by someone, but usually it's just like, you know what? Different strokes for different folks. If you don't think it'll work for you, it won't. But the people that have, you know, an understanding of these grappling disciplines, that there's a portion of judo that might work for my jiu-jitsu, Open your mind to it. There's a portion of wrestling that works for my judo. Open your mind to it. There's a portion of your judo that could work for your wrestling. All these disciplines work together. And I'm not trying to leave out sambo or some of these other disciplines, but I feel like a lot of that is covered within judo and wrestling. I mean, they're literally wearing a singlet and a gi top with wrestling shoes. So it's like literally the two uniforms are spliced together for that sport. So I do add sambo within that context.
That's awesome. I really like that, man. Yeah. And yeah, I can understand this for someone in your position that posts a lot of techniques and content, that you're dealing with the, I call them couch scholars. There's the people that are online, there's so many, anything you post online technique wise, it seems like there's going to be, like you said, at least 50 critiques, but something that comes with the territory, I guess. And
it's like, okay, if I'm going to post something as simple as a double leg or something super simple, yes, there's truth in that. But anyone can do a double, basically. If you spend 20 minutes on like proper form, it's just, okay, now go out and do that for the rest of your life. It's hard. Your neck is going to pay the price. And there's always a good time for a good double. I'm not saying there isn't, but if that's your main go-to, you're going to understand that there's layers to it, and you're going to have to like move past that double leg to work towards tie-ups and positional understanding of what that pyramid looks like. If like we have double underhooks, we're at the top of the pyramid of control. If we have one overhook, we're probably near the bottom. If we're on one foot bouncing on one leg, we're near the bottom. We got to like work to get to the top, which is the takedown or the perfect controlled position for our standing game to work.
That's excellent, man. I really like that. There's something else you pointed out too, and that obviously what separates most grappling styles is their competitive rule sets. And one thing that jiu-jitsu players, like you said earlier, should be cautious of when landing a throw is that it could lead them to an unfavorable follow-up on the ground from their opponent. So, like for example, a jiu-jitsu guy that throws someone with like a drop kataguruma or a fireman's carry would need to be cautious not to land himself in a crucifix. That's something that could totally happen. And there's plenty of examples like that. What do you feel are some of the higher risk throws for jiu-jitsu players and some of the lower risk throws?
So I think it depends on how you do your seoinage. If you drop the both knees classic style like judo, in between their legs deep and coming up underneath and throwing them over you, you have a low probability of getting re-rolled. But if the throw itself fails, you have your back taken, most likely. And in jiu-jitsu, sport jiu-jitsu, there's no real slip. Like in freestyle wrestling, there used to be a slip where if you try a throw and it doesn't work, they take your back, they don't get points because you tried. The same with judo. If you try a seoinage or throw, the only downside is they might choke or armbar you on the groundwork side. So those two sports have a safety net, which that's why they're more sports, where it's like if you give up your back in a fight, I don't know, how much reality there is to your turtle, like going to keep you safe. So to distinguish the differences between like the sport and the martial art, whereas like jiu-jitsu, sure, it's been sportified a lot, and a lot of judo throws will put you in bad positions. But if you understand the most important thing is you don't want to end up in bad position, no matter how hard you throw someone, you're going to come to some understandings of where to stop the throw. Like with uchimata, a lot of my uchimatas, I don't even throw them to their back anymore. I throw them to their hand. And then I come out to the front for a front headlock rather than like try and throw them to their back and get rolled in a deep half and now I'm underneath you. A lot of foot sweeps, a lot of them are done halfway, and I'll do them forwards where I'll trip your foot back and put you back onto your hands to get a front headlock as well. Rather than like, it's hard to contain a lot of momentum with a big throw like a harai goshi or some of these big uranagis where I'm like, I got you body locked and I'm flipping you over. There's a lot that happens when you hit the mat scramble wise. So it's like, how do we contain that? Well, let's not even try and do it. Let's like do these minor leg uchimatas that break the balance almost as a kazushi itself to get a front headlock or front chokes or create a scramble that's going to get us out of bad position when someone has maybe a double under body lock. What are we going to do there? It's hard to just defend that body lock. Let's try and throw you and stop that throw halfway through the throw and then face them rather than we're all in here trying to throw them and they stay on our back and then we roll through and they have our back when we land. So I mean, I could get into details, but it's hard to explain it with my words. And I'm sure you run into that a lot. And I only have so much technical gift of gab without having to show things. So,
well, you know what's cool about what you just said there, man? A question I planned on asking you today was where you find a lot of crossover between your judo knowledge and your wrestling knowledge. And it's so cool that you pretty much pointed that out on your own. So you said that you like to do a lot of things for example, with a Uchimata, it's not so much that you're trying to throw people and land that big ippon anymore. It's more that you're trying to get their hands to the mat so you can follow up with front headlocks and things of that nature.
Yes. Knockdowns, like almost like bad judo. Like half judo.
That's cool.
It almost works better. Where foot sweeps like Kochi and Dayashi Burai and like Yokogake and these like foot ashiwaza, it's hard to like these foot sweeps where you hit their feet with your feet. A lot of those are good for balance breaks and knockdowns that could lead me to their back without having to like get them on their back. So it's more proficient to take someone's back and mat return them in more of a wrestling style, or sometimes using my feet as well, and then throwing hooks in and having that long-term control rather than a chaotic takedown, which could lead to a scramble, which the most athletic person usually wins, rather than like, well, I did the move. Doesn't A lead directly to B control? It's not the case. So judo's more like refined in that, where it's like there's only so many ways to win. So everything is built around those ways to win, rather than jiu-jitsu where, I mean, I could throw you and land myself into a toe hold. So it's like I remember watching this guy, Ed Ruth, fight in Bellator. He's a 3-time NCAA wrestling champion from Penn State. One of the best ever.
Yeah, totally.
And I think he went against like a pretty decent jiu-jitsu guy in Bellator, but no one that's like, you know, the world class. And the first takedown that happened, Ed Ruth shot a double, took him down, and kind of didn't want to fall with him in a weird way and lost his balance. And then next thing you know, he looks back and down and he's in toe hold. And then the next thing you know, he's tapping. It's over. It's
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah.
So you can get these like mismatches of levels within different disciplines. Like one's world class, one is okay. But it's finding out where like that loophole is and where you could, you know, if someone's overzealous in one art, there's openings for a different art to take place and win. Like if someone's driving forward with a body lock, wrestling me super hard, that's the best opening for judo usually. So it's like finding someone who's doing their discipline so hard and they're kind of insulated maybe, so they haven't felt like the way out, which is another discipline technically. That's like what I want everything to come together. So there's always an answer, whether, you know, people who are super specialized, I get it. That's what they need to do to be the best wrestler or jiu-jitsu competitor or judoka. But in MMA, you know, things change, you know, like the best jiu-jitsu player can be submitted by a blue belt. And we've seen that. So it's like, it's true. So, you know, that's why I like to play those games. And, you know, I'm hoping for something maybe similar this weekend with Angela Hill and her opponent. So, yeah, like Mackenzie Dern is no slouch. But, I mean, when something isn't expected, that's when it could work. And I think we know what what she's going to do. And I don't think it's the same with Mackenzie in Angela's case. So, you know, we could see something interesting happen, possibly. But mostly we've been training the defense side. So, and that happens a lot, you know, it happens a lot, like breaking down opponents and seeing where they might not see how they're open because it's always worked for them in that discipline.
Well, yeah, that's what's I think this is all I think is so captivating about combat sports and grappling and MMA is just all these variables and all these what ifs that exist and the blending of styles, like you've said. It's so cool to see that work live in situations. And, you know, they kind of,
it's hard to predict.
Yeah.
It's really hard to predict.
Absolutely.
Like, I remember Shinya Aoki fought Gilbert Melendez and I was like, Shinya Aoki at the time was my favorite grappler in mixed martial arts. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I like Gilbert. I know Gilbert. And I think it was early on in the fight, Shinya Aoki pulls guard and Gilbert Melendez just runs at him and throws an uppercut and knocks him out. And it's like, it's not jiu-jitsu. Like, you know, you got to be able to transition into a grappling situation, as we saw with Kron Gracie this last month, where, I mean, like there has to be another layer so that the guard is it works. And the way that it was played in that case, it's really kind of a shame because we want to see his jiu-jitsu. It's just like there's something missing. He needs a takedown. He needs to counter wrestle. He needs to find out how to close the distance. And that's the hard part. And that's, and I could talk about that firsthand with Ronda Rousey fighting Holly Holm. A lot of times she would be able to close that distance with bum rushing and kind of a Dutch rush or just getting to a collar. And in a big cage with someone with really quick feet that's elusive, that's really hard. So it's like, okay, we need to learn a wrestling takedown. There's always an answer. It's just whether or not that happens, Yeah. And in Ronda's case, she had a really bad knee, right knee. She couldn't level change or drop step the way that, she practiced double, had a good double. It's just like, maybe the doubt was there or just some of those things that it's hard to be able to do in the highest level moments,
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, I think classically in jiu-jitsu, there's been, there's a lot of takedown concepts that most of us learn when we're learning jiu-jitsu early on. There's like clinches and leg clips and body folds and things like that work really well against someone who's not trained, who's just coming at you in a self-defense situation, throwing haymakers, and it still works. It's just like you said, it depends on where and who you're applying it to. But when you get into the world of combat sports, especially at an elite level, dude, you have to have some different variables. Like you said, you have to have different layers, and that was very well stated, man.
I think in this 2023, the evolution of the sport, I think it's important to have a discipline you could rely on. Like you started and this is your base discipline and this is where, you figure you're going to beat most opponents. And then to grow from that is important. But if you only stay insulated and have kind of paradigm paralysis and you understand there's a bigger world, but you double down on your skill sets rather than like accepting the fact that you need to grow in other areas, you're going to hit some brick walls, it's going to be hard, but there are people that can do it. I'm not saying it's not doable. It's just, it's going to be hard to tactically adapt in a moment where you're shut down. If you don't have an A or a B or a B or a C or a D. So that's kind of like where things end up hitting that brick wall.
Yeah. Well, a perfect example of that's my instructor down here is I learned directly from Damian Maya.
Wow.
And so totally. So Damian's a great example of someone who obviously phenomenal jiu-jitsu and he was kind of like that one style specialist, much like how Ronda was with judo.
Yeah,
but Damian in the last, 10 years or so has become obsessed with wrestling. Like he travels to New Jersey every 6 months, spends tons of time there with the guys up at Elite Edge and guys like Cody Hamra and people like that. And he spends a lot of time with his wrestling, and it shows. Like his single leg is really, really high class. It's a really, really world class. And you can see how even someone who does have their specialty and keeps to their specialty, like you said, it's important to add those extra layers, man. There are pieces that exist in between,
Yeah, I think like the perfect fighter would probably have a background in a striking discipline as their first martial art.
Sure.
Just for light feet, then having a jiu-jitsu game to balance it. And then third, to plug in the takedown.
Yeah.
Or you could just be a lifelong wrestler and develop some striking later. And I think those are like two real options. Like,
totally.
And for guys, it's a little easier that, especially that live in America, that wrestling is like a predominant cultural sport that exists at all levels from 5 on up, and it's public almost. So it's easy to find here in America. So you could have that kind of like a Bo Nickel, that trajectory where you've done nothing but wrestle since you were, in diapers. And now you're a world-class MMA fighter with very little striking, maybe 2 years of striking, that's not much. So I think that's a hard, because then that means you have to be a world-class wrestler though. It means, so it's easier to kind of like puzzle it where you have kickboxing, you have jiu-jitsu, and now we're studying for this takedown world. That's doubles, pummels, and sprawls. That's pretty like refined. That's like the scientific almost way, rather than a lifetime of 6,000 wrestling matches. The mileage on that is you can't go back on that mileage. Sure, yeah. So you're going to be, 70% of the athlete you were going into your MMA career. So, it's fun to kind of think about. And I see people of all ages and levels. So it's, I'm always learning what would be the best, if we could build a perfect MMA fighter, so sometimes it's just mental fortitude, like that's literally the reason. So it's sometimes the intangibles, sometimes it's a mix of things, sometimes it's one thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, man. It's something I think about most of the day. So I'm glad I get to do this for a living, because
awesome.
It really does consume my brain about 90% of my day. So yeah,
it's like baby shark songs are stuck in my head. Exactly. Changing diapers and anything that relates to fighting and grappling.
Oh man, you nailed that so well with the baby shark thing. That song is, oh my god, dude. Most of my days. It's something cool about you, man. And speaking of work and doing this kind of stuff, you work with a lot of athletes who don't use the gi. You work with a lot of MMA fighters and no gi grapplers. What are some of the biggest adaptations you focus on when teaching judo specifically for no gi situations?
Well, it's having enough familiarity and relaxation within a pummel. So if you're pummeled and clinched up and hugging it out in a high intense moment, it's probably pretty difficult to do a judo throw unless you're really familiar and relaxed. So doing a lot of different drills where it's starts as mechanical and very limited in what you're allowed to do. So it's proper, and you could be relaxed within these good, proper forms. So you don't have to overexert. And that's usually what happens. Like you get to a position where the horns are locked, you're going to overexert and you'd be tired. So if you keep good position and a couple frames and a hand somewhere and your body position a little angled, you don't have to exert that same energy. You can start to set traps and start to understand, if you move them this way, they're going to take a step that way, and there's Ouchigari. Or if you push that way, they're going to push back, there is Uchi. Like these forward and back throws are going to be a little bit easier to get to just based on your own like relaxation and how you are in an over and under or a body lock or double overs or a whizzer or just an underhook or a 2-on-1, all these front headlock, all these positions. If you could find your way to them, you're going to be able to apply techniques with those positions. It's just, how comfortable do you feel in these positions? How many hours have you spent in these positions? How many reps of the throw itself have you performed? And all those things matter. And I like to train those separate and together. Like, okay, today we're going to do 100 throws. You're going to do 10 sets of 10 different throws from these positions. And then the next time we train, we're going to do 30 minutes of just, you're in a pummel. I want you switching over. I want you switching over and moving and pushing and pulling and circling. And then we'll gradually within that, I'll do a minute of that. Then the next minute, I want you to use your feet within this pummel, a switch over where you're leading a dance. You're not looking down. You're not stepping on their feet, but you're using little trips, little kochis, little sasais, little foot props, little hand props, little things to where you're leading this dance and you're also breaking their balance. Now, I want you to apply double underhooks when you get to these, like this next minute. So every time you do it, you want this perfect setup, punch your shoulder, get to double unders. Now let's start implementing techniques from here. So that's the easiest way to do it, from double unders, because you're not risking as much. You're not like in bad position trying to do a crazy throw. And then once you get comfortable enough doing from double unders, let's do these same techniques, most of them from an over and under. You could still perform them. If you could perform those from an over and under, you could probably perform them from double overs. So it's what techniques with what comfortability of tie-up. Like if you're really good at doing throws, you don't need a good tie-up. You could you just set traps. Like, okay, double underhook me. All right, let's go. So that's the highest level of judoka, that is, or wrestler, that's going to be able to get out of position and find, like Frank Chamizo, a great wrestler, who he is better out of position. He's just one big trap setter. He'll let you deep into a double, deep into a body lock, and he'll counter you. And he'll be able to throw you or scramble to a takedown. He's like my favorite to watch of the modern kind of, maybe wrestler to watch. If we're just, freestyle wrestling, Satiev, if we go back in time, you could keep going, but man, people that wrestle like they're doing judo, like they have the influence of their country's judo program behind them because they cross-trained. Russia, Cuba, these countries in the Eastern Bloc, they've trained a lot of judo. So it's obvious watching these wrestlers do judo techniques in their wrestling. So America, the US system doesn't really have a lot of that. It's more of like a Big Ten style of wrestling, which emanates from Dan Gable and works its way down towards all the different programs where Dan Gable's students and Iowa wrestlers then went off to coach nationally at D1 programs. So it's like 2 or 3 generations worth of the culture within wrestling has emanated or turned into this style where you want to stand where they're standing. Hand fighting should be this discipline within itself. Standing and moving forward as a presence rather than retreating. Like these things that are hard on your body, but make you mentally strong and make you a winner. They're simple for folk style. For freestyle, it gets more complicated. Point scoring isn't just like a bully thing. It's like you have to get them on their back. You know, you have to judofy it a little bit because the big points are from putting people on their back rather than just getting behind them. So things change in that style. That's where Russian stylists and Eastern Bloc stylists they're a little more successful than Americans, at least historically. You know, it goes in trends, but you know, stylistically, people who are using their feet for foot sweeps and legs and hips for uchimadas and reaping and tripping while tying up the upper body have more success in that style. In folk style, it's difficult because every time you do a foot sweep, they're going to grab your leg and now you're fighting off a single leg. And that is the predominant means of scoring, you know? So, you know, it depends on which discipline you're in. You got to thread a needle. You got to figure out what techniques suit the discipline you're in, you know? So that's why I always say it's really hard for wrestlers just to go into jiu-jitsu. They're going to eat 10 guillotines the first day, but that next day they'll probably eat 5. And then after that, they're going to start understanding where to be just from a progression, not someone telling them, you know? So that's a lot of my job is like, I want to make it simpler for you so I can explain where these safe parts are, where I've done all that with myself. Like I have a technique, you know, that I teach. I didn't invent it. It's like a head lever. You swim to the head. And this is in all forms of wrestling. This technique is seen freestyle and folk style. And you could use it from a high C crackdown where you're shooting and you can't really finish coming up. So you put them on their butt and then you grab their head and you roll your head and you're on top. You could do it when they could do it when you have the hook in. You peel the hook, you swim to the head, you rotate. You can do it as a rollback. You go to the head and you do a backflip. There's like so many ways. And I've kind of like played with this technique so much in jiu-jitsu and in judo and in wrestling that I teach it more and more now. And my students are starting to use it, but it looks like I'm putting myself in the worst position known to man. I'm giving up my back just out of nowhere, but it's really how comfortable you are with the sequence once you put yourself in bad position. And it's all confidence and training. And I think it's one of those movements and moves that I hope takes, you know, a life of its own and is successful for people. It's a whole series I put together on my website. And, you know, I get the worst comments ever and messages. And it's like, you know what, I'm not going to make everyone happy. And I even preface that in my trailer for this series where it's like, conventional wisdom might not be, so nice with this move as far as like what your gut reaction of giving up your back. But if you just practice it a few times in the right way, you're going to end up winning most of these exchanges. And if not all the time, that first time where it's like a gimmick almost, where it's like, I just passed your guard by giving you my back. That's important sometimes because that it might not work ever again, but they're not going to play you the same. So it's like creating that first win in a round, or just that I'm on the offense doing something awkward. It really will give people second thought to initiate in anything. So, you know, and that's just like off the cuff, a series and a technique that I feel like, you know, has a lot of value and gravitational weight to it. And it's just whether it takes off or not. And, you know, we'll see. I get a lot of hate for it, but we'll see what happens.
Well, man, you know, that really does speak volumes to the idea, like you were saying earlier, of the value of something that's unpredictable. If you have something that you've drilled and repeated and used successfully over and over again, and you know what the proper variables are to keep yourself safe, and it's something really unexpected that the other person doesn't know, and you start putting the wheels in motion before they can start realizing what's even going on, man, that's what'll make something unconventional work. You know,
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, it's hard to prove whether or not these work at the highest levels, other than the people I've done it on, you know, that are good. Yeah. So, you know, it's like, okay, I competed in an analog era where a lot of my footage doesn't exist from wrestling at Nebraska, especially. I've tons of matches, which just, you know, high school matches, college matches was in the 90s, early 2000s. So it's like, I don't have much competition footage of me wrestling. I've very little. A lot of judo because it's a little bit later into the 2000s, up till 2008. So it's like I got an offer to compete at the ADCC event in Las Vegas. What was that? A year and a half ago now, almost. Yeah, a year ago. And I considered it heavily. You know, I'm older. I'm 42, 43 now, 42 then. My knees don't really exist. I don't have ACLs or PCLs. I need a right knee replacement. I've done stem cells numerous times. I do what I can to function as long as I can. And I really was considering competing. I don't think I needed it as much to like keep being successful in what I do, like creating my brand or teaching people or my website or my BJJ Fanatics series that I've put out. Any of those things, I think they'll be fine on their own. I kind of needed it to rectify, the way I finished competing. And strangely, the ADCC event was at the same venue as the 2008 Olympic trials in Las Vegas. Oh. So it would have been cathartic in a way where, I really did think about it, and I still kind of regret not doing it, but I have 2 kids. I'm training people. My life is not geared towards like taking 8 to 10 weeks to specifically train for myself. I almost think I would have done pretty good off the cuff, but I think the big determining factor would have been making weight at 66 kilograms. It's a morning of weigh-in. I used to compete that 15 years ago, and it was a struggle then. So, I still think I could have made it. I just don't know if the best even, I would have been a shadow of myself most likely. And that's not what I want to like show to the world. My best days are behind me, and I understand that. I'm 43 and I would be, ignorant to say otherwise. So I just really wish I could have ended my career, my competition career, in a way I could hang my hat on and been like, you know what? I reached my potential, and I'm proud to leave that door closed. But I think it's a double-edged sword. If I would have made an Olympic team, I was the alternate. If I would have been able to reach my potential, I probably wouldn't be involved in the sport anymore. I think I would have been able to like close that book and 9 to 5, been able to like create my graphic design company and stuck with that. But I always had this like nagging urge and pull to like, there's more here, whether that's like, I don't want it to be a thing where, my ego needs it. Like, more people need to know what I did or anything like that. It's just like, I spent my whole life creating these skills, and it's like, it would be almost a shame to just let that die. Oh, yeah. From my brother to my dad to all the people that influenced me to be able to obtain all this knowledge, and then where does it go? It goes to die. So it's like, I feel like there's value, and I was just lucky enough to have one of my best friends and family members see that value in Ronda Rousey when she said, come on this journey with me. I know there's so much you could show me, and we could be involved and do this together. And it was, I don't know if I would ever stuck with, combat sports or in this arena of grappling, judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling the same way if, I had accomplished what I wanted to as an athlete. So I think there was value to me, not succeeding and reaching my potential. So now, I could take myself out of the equation too, because I have all of that experience as an athlete, and I took time between when I was an athlete and a coach. I didn't just go right into the next where, it was all about me as an athlete. As a coach, you should learn to really like understand that whatever's best for the athlete in that moment or long-term is how you have to try and devise their camp or their training or them, not me. It's not what I would do in this situation that would work. So I feel like I lived 2 lives in that respect, where I was able to obtain the best from my competition life, as far as like, this is what'll work in this situation. And these are the techniques that, I can feel that you would do. And I understand that game and that tempo and the competition side. And then as a coach, taking a step back and also being a parent now, I understand what's more important. It's like, I'll have me time whenever that is, but the height of a moment, sitting in a chair, yelling from a corner or behind a fence. It's like, what is best for them, you know? So, and that's what makes me really sleep well at night. I don't feel like I have to like prove to anyone anything. It's almost what's left. It's like, in my eyes, you know, I always wanted to coach an Olympic team. I wanted to be an Olympian. I wanted to like prove judo's value within MMA and the UFC, and all those things to me, like, I feel like I've done. And it's not just me, obviously. It's like I'm part of this like journey, and I enjoy the ride for sure. It's just like, you know, I'm trying to keep that going. And, you know, I have new students hitting me up all the time. I have old students I'm still training. So, you know, I couldn't be in a better place as far as like why I think I'm here on planet Earth.
That's incredible. I love that, man. I really do. I think knowing your why is something that's so important for every human being to know, you know, and I've always said that, like, being on the path of a competitive athlete is obviously it's an amazing thing, but in my opinion, giving back, being a coach, being a teacher, focusing rather than on focusing on building one career, as a coach, you're building multiple careers. You're building multiple paths and journeys within people, and you're a major part of it. And to me, that just seems so much more fulfilling, you know, in the long run. When you look at the end of your life, it's like, yeah, there's my stuff that I did myself, but man, look what I did for these 20 other people that went off and went on 20 different paths of their own, and then those paths branch off to their students, and their students branch off. You almost become immortalized kind of with your knowledge and your efforts, you know? So it's a really cool thing, man. I appreciate you sharing that.
For those that helped me, I bring them up daily, and, you know, teaching sessions or on my website where I'm teaching techniques, and I'm giving people credit where credit is due, as well as I understand that it all doesn't come from a vacuum, a void. Like, I learned from my dad, my brother, Jason Morris, Arnold Alpert, Lyndon Campbell. These are wrestling and judo coaches throughout my journey that, if it wasn't for them, you know, I probably would have gone off the deep end in one way or another, whether that's like socially or, you know, I would like to cut loose when I was younger. So I had times in my life where I needed to find like the path back to, don't deviate. This is the way. Stick with this, whether that's like in my lifestyle or on the mat technically. So, you know, it didn't just come from a vacuum. I had these people that played major roles in it. And I really give thanks to those people all the time, and when I teach or to them directly. And, you know, if I'm another one of those people for one of my students in the future, and that's how my legacy is kind of remembered or kept alive, I would be honored.
Well, dude, it's so much better too. Like, how many times have you seen fighters, or even just like people in an everyday jiu-jitsu room who become really good and then get hurt or something happens, and then they just leave and they're just done and they never do it again. It's like, man, it's so much better to remain on the trajectory of developing and helping other people and being involved. You know, I mean, that's so much better than just walking away, like you said, throwing away years of knowledge and, you know, blood and sweat that you exchanged for those skills. I mean, it's just, what a waste it would be to walk away. So I think it's really cool and insightful on your part that you recognize that as something that was a good thing in the long run, because ultimately you might have, man, all these people that seek your knowledge might not have had you, you know. So that's true.
I mean, it's a way of rationalizing it as well, you know, because of course I wanted to be an Olympic champion. I mean, man, if I was really close to accomplishing my goals as an athlete, and I was always a step short, but that might have just meant I had lofty goals, you know. But if I could do it over, I'd probably do it a little different, but I like the results. I like where I ended up because of it. So sure, I probably would have protected myself a little different through, you know, what happened with my knees. But at the end of the day, like, I could sleep well at night, and I have a great family who loves me, and I have students who I teach that I really respect and are on their journeys of being either world champions or just want to add a takedown to their already, you know, black belt jiu-jitsu game. And I have a lot of those, you know, and that Isaac Dordeline, he's been coming to me every Wednesday, and he's the key world champion of my size in jiu-jitsu. And he's a wizard, like, but he wants to add a skill, and he goes into it humbly, drives an hour and a half to 2 hours every Wednesday to come see me. And, you know, I respect the hell out of that, because he could probably ball me up, you know, tie me up into a gi with his gi, you know, like, but he wants to learn, okay, how do I defend this? How do I use this move? How do I try and transition from this move to the ground? So he has his own series of questions, as do I with him. So it's a good like transfer of knowledge on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other thing about you, man, is that you have such an impressive list of people that seek your knowledge, and that speaks volumes to you as a coach and the knowledge that you've accumulated over your career. Someone in particular that I'd really love to hear about, Paddy Pimblett, man, what a character. What's that been like working with him? And if you don't mind, give us like your favorite story of spending time with him.
Sure. I mean, a lot of them. So he, as you know, he's like a charismatic, colorful athlete. You know, he blows up and gets really big, and then he shrinks down within about an 8 or 9 week span. And I've seen him a little bit in the weight cut Paddy, but mostly I've seen like jovial out of camp Paddy, who's trying to add, you know, skills to his already developed game. So he's not super serious. He's not like in camp, you know, but he still is there. So, you know, we train hard, we'll roll, we'll do all of our, you know, judo hybrid with MMA and jiu-jitsu. And, he, you know, he's really nice to work with. And I found him all sorts of partners out here. And he seems to have resonated really well with Chasen Blair, who's one of the wrestlers I coached out of high school. He was a state champ in California and then went to North Carolina to wrestle Division I, and now he's come back to fight. And Chasen Blair is about 215 pounds when he's, you know, out of camp. And he's just a little heavier than Paddy when Paddy comes to train. So it's like Paddy's fighting 155, weighing 200 pounds to train. So it's like, you know, but
crazy.
I don't like corner him, or I don't coach him when he's in camp or that lifestyle thing. It's more just technical, and we're friends, which I love it. It's almost better that way, because I met him late in his career. I'm not someone who's going to meet him in the midst of his success and be like, you need to do this. It's like, we're adults. Like, he has his people. And so it keeps it a little bit more loose and off the cuff, which I really have gotten to know him pretty well through that. You know, instead of like, we're going to grind, let's go. And then, you know, you're almost playing a role at that point. So, you know, he had a bad ankle in his last fight. And he trained with it bad, and, you know, it would roll every 15 minutes or so sometimes. And it's like he fought through it, and he, during training, it would roll and kind of pop out a little bit, and the ligaments were all stretched out, and he had to get surgery. But he would train through all that. I mean, he's a tough dude. Like, I can't say enough good things about who he is when he's on the mat. You know, when he eats and stuff, I wish he didn't do as much. Obviously, he'd probably have more success, but it's part of his like brand and charisma. And I really like him. You know, we get along quite well. And technically he picks up things really quick, and he was able to exhibit that. And we started working, and in his next fight, he hit a Harai, was on top, and won. So it was like, it was pretty fulfilling as a coach, to be honest. And the funny story about that is like, his manager gave me some options as far as like, hey, your involvement, you know, do you want to go out to New York and spend time with him during these like UFC press junkets and get more involved? And, you know, I had a choice at the time, and I had my second kid, and it was like, you know, I just can't travel the world with fighters the way I used to. If I would have done it then, you know, I'd probably be more involved now. But it's just, I've done that, and there's a time when, you know, I probably will again. You know, it's just, it would have been great to be able to do that and be more involved, but he's my friend. I work with him when he's in town, which is, you know, pretty often, as far as like his manager lives near me. So he comes out here off camp and, you know, promotes his brands that he's created out here even. So, and Barstool Sports follows him around with the camera 24/7 when he's out here. So we get a lot of good content. But yeah, like he's coming along, and, you know, I think he's able to implement the stuff we've worked on really well. And as far as like any personal anecdotes that have happened, I feel like the whole time is like, everything's a funny experience with him. You know, like even simple drills are made comical. So it's like, you know, he's a good dude. I really do. He makes me smile just thinking about him, because he's really fun. There's no drama. You know, I haven't had the chance or opportunity to work with him in those times, which, you know, I think is almost a good thing for right now, where it's like, I'm not saying you got to get back in the sauna. You got 7 more pounds to lose and you have 4 hours. That's the kind of coach I'm used to being to a lot of people. And that's stressful. I've been there in the judo, the wrestling, and the MMA realm where I've been the bad guy. I've been the athlete cutting weight too. So those things are not things I really enjoy. If I could show up to fight week after weigh-ins, when the fight is going to happen on a Saturday and the weigh-ins happen Friday morning, awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of work needs to be done fight week, keeping people mentally ready and getting them loose and doing the 1 workout or 2 light workouts a day just to keep sharp. Those things are important. And that's what a coach needs to be involved in. And unfortunately, I can't be there for, a lot of these people right now, which is sad. I wish I could be traveling and more involved, but I've done all that. And, I want to make memories with my kids. And I don't want to feel like the whole podcast is me rationalizing how I don't go with athletes to their events anymore or haven't in a while. It's just really difficult, and I want this to almost be a platform where I can explain that because I'm not as visible as maybe I once was. And that's just the reason why.
Well, man, I think that your reasons behind that are very good reasons, man. I mean, it really is very honorable reasons to be in that situation. And man, like I said, I love seeing all the content you put out there. You obviously, you're a tremendous coach for the people you worked with directly. But man, you're also now out there digitally more for the whole world to see, which I think is really exciting. So nothing but kudos to you, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Justin, there's something I do on every show with each guest. It's a game called the pummel. The pummel is a series of random questions. Some of these are related to jiu-jitsu and grappling. Some of them have nothing to do with jiu-jitsu. But if you're down to play the pummel, I'd love to play this game with you.
Sure.
All right.
Hopefully I come off as, I don't know.
It's just,
let's see what this goes.
You're gonna do, man. You're the master of pummeling in real life, man. So this is a breeze. This is nothing. It's basically just a lightning round. I'm just gonna throw a bunch of quick questions at you. Question 1: what's the worst job you ever had in your life?
That's easy. So I after the 2004 Olympics, I lost in a very controversial and hard to close the book on way. I made it to the final match where I'd beat my opponent, I think 6 out of 8 times at that time. So I had like the lead as far as like, I thought I was going to go to the Olympics. I came in for a move and I hit my head real hard on the ground, on the mat. And I came to, and they were giving the other guy the win. The other guy went to the Olympics because of just like, a blackout, a quick flash knockout, which in the long run is probably smart. But at the time, what? He didn't throw me on my back really. There was no like ippon. So after that, I was pretty depressed. I gained about 50 pounds, 40 pounds. It was almost like, I don't know if you've seen the movie Dodgeball at the end where Ben Stiller is like eating ice cream all sad. I remember watching that movie 3 months after the Olympic trials, basically like, yeah, that's me. But I worked doing construction after that for about $10 an hour. 9 hours a day in Poway where the sun is 110 degrees in the middle of summer. So I remember like watching the Olympics. And then I remember waking up one morning during the 2004 Olympics and the guy that beat me was on Good Morning America showing how to do a judo throw the day before he competed. And I was getting ready to go to work, putting on like crap clothes to go for a crap job, digging ditches, breaking down brick, moving A to B, no, not building anything, knocking down so they could rebuild. And this was basically my whole summer. And it was very eye-opening about manual labor and like what I do on the mat versus what I would do for work, where what I do for work is way harder, way more strenuous, way longer. Whereas what I was doing in judo and wrestling at the time was much more succinct. You get in, you get out, you have an hour of training, you do that twice a day, you're good. Where this is 8 or 9 hours in the sun for, pennies on the dollar for what, a skilled laborer would be doing. So it really motivated me to not have to do that ever again. So it's a good 4 months of $10 an hour, back-breaking work in the sun. Sure, I was happy I was making some money, but it was not where I wanted to be in life.
Yeah.
So, it was good motivation. That's
a good one, man. I've worked construction briefly in the past as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about, man. My hat's off to anyone that does that out there, because that is tough work, man. Yeah.
It's honorable. You're not breaking the law. You're building someone a house. You're not. But I saw where I should have been. I should have been in Athens. I should have been representing my country, vying for a medal. But here I am digging ditches.
I feel you on that one, man. 100%.
Yeah.
What do you think is a secret talent that you have that people don't know about?
I don't know if it's so much a secret anymore, but I'm pretty good at jump roping.
Oh, jump rope. Yeah.
Jump roping is something as a kid, I was on a team called the San Diego Sand Skippers, and we competed. We traveled the demonstrations all over the Western seaboard. We went Disneyland, SeaWorld. We did all sorts of cool demonstrations, and we'd travel for events where who could do the best 2-minute, like synchronized jump roping routine, or who could do the most double unders, or who could do the most speed where they count your left foot only hitting the ground 1, 2, 1, 2. So there's all these like events within jump roping. And I was age 6 to 9. I think I was in 6 to 8. So for my whole life, I've been able to like jump rope really well, just because when you're 6, 7, and 8, I think those are skills. If you learn something, you'll probably know it forever if you continue to do it even lightly.
Oh yeah.
So through, wrestling weight cuts and judo weight cuts, I traveled to third world countries, and I just bring my jump rope because I could find a hot room somewhere.
Yeah.
So it was always my trusty weight cut machine. It was my jump rope.
That's so cool. Yeah, man, jump rope is such a great cardio tool, and it's something that again with me returning to learning boxing again, that's been one of the tougher things, man. I can go about a minute before it hits my feet and I have to start again. And then later on in the round, like that 1 minute becomes more like 30 seconds, and it gets down to 15 seconds, to the point where my coach is just like, "Oh God, Ryan, please."
Yeah, it's only if you really want to play with fire. If you want to if you trust yourself, take your shoes off and just go for it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. If you mess up, it hurts. Yeah, that's a good point. What do you think is your favorite bad food to eat? Favorite junk food?
Oh man. So I don't know how bad it is for you. I mean, I'm sure it's not good, but the meal before I would die was probably chicken katsu curry. So nice. I've been to Japan 20 times. I grew up kind of like, I don't know, my dad, judo. It's a Japanese sport. So my dad's first language was Spanish. I don't know how to speak Spanish. I know how to speak better Japanese than Spanish.
Oh, cool.
So it's just interesting, like raised within a sport, like, and learning it classically, judo. It's like a cultural portal to Japanese, language and culture. So first time I went to Japan, I was 10. Japanese food has always been part of my life, and chicken katsu curry was what I could afford when I trained at different college universities in my early 20s. So when I'd travel to Budo University, Kokusai Budo University, it's like an international martial arts university on the beach in Katsura in Chiba. It's south of Tokyo. It's beautiful. It's on the ocean. It's in a jungle on the ocean. It's beautiful. All there is to do there is martial arts. All I could afford was the 800 yen chicken katsu curry every day for lunch. So at the cafeteria there. So usually there's the cafeteria for the university students, whether it's Meiji University or Tokai, all these different universities I trained at. The cheaper meals are usually like the chicken katsu curry. It's like not that good for you, but it's great. It's my favorite.
That's awesome. Dude, I love Japanese food, man. In fact, dude, you got to come visit me down here at some point. So Sao Paulo has the biggest Japanese population in the world outside of Japan. So there's like so much good sushi
here, man. I love when I go to Brazil, I can depend on that.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, man, I'll show you my favorite spot next time you're here for sure.
Sweet.
What do you think is your favorite? Now this is gonna be kind of a tough one for you, but favorite MMA fighter? I know that's kind of a loaded question because you work directly with many fighters.
Still, I mean, I would have to go with like right now, just their style, not like personality, because I think that is a part of things people weigh in like who their favorite fighter is. I think just purely from a technical standpoint and who I could relate with the most is probably Islam Makhachev or Khabib, that like Dagestani style, the persistent grappler, the one who's going to use all their facilities, not just wrestling. They're going to trip, they're going to throw, they're going to submit. They're going to use all those things. They're not just like shooting doubles and laying on top of people. Like kind of American style wrestlers, folk style wrestlers are more geared towards that, like diving in with a double, putting you up against the fence and holding you there. Where I think that Dagestani crew it may look the same to first glance or to the untrained eye, but they're doing so much more. They're keeping you down by almost letting you up a little bit and then bringing you back down, rather than I'm just going to stick you down here and hold you. Because that's just like ground and pound, a little bit boringness, where it's like playing with your food almost, where you almost get up, you're going back down. And when you land, it's going to be harder and in a different position, whether it's a trip or a mat return or a suplex or whatever technique. And I like their modes of taking down is mostly trips and reaps and different kind of judo styled takedowns. And as you can see how Khabib talks about judo, that's an implemented portion of their takedown game. It's not just pure sambo or wrestling.
100%. Yeah, no, I love the Dagestani fighters, man. Like, Islam and Khabib. I always appreciate, like I love what you said there too on the technical side of how they do kind of they don't just pin you and keep you there. They do kind of let you move a little bit so you fall susceptible to other things. Like Khabib in particular, he'll get that not really side body control, but he gets sort of like it's kind of like an outer flattened turtle control where he bars the arm on the far side.
Yeah, it's a handcuff. Yeah,
he's just nailing you. There's really nothing you can do about it. It's such a dominating, cool, grappling based style, dude. It's a good choice, man. Yeah, good choices. What do you think is your biggest phobia?
Mustard.
Okay, walk me through that. I got to hear the story behind this.
So my grandma, who's like Yaqui Indian, it's like a Mexican Native American.
Yeah.
She, it's like voodoo medicine type thing.
Sure, yeah.
Or like putting like mustard on your lower extremities when you're sick is apparently like, a way to get rid of when you're sick with the flu or something. Yeah. So you're supposed to be like mustard seed, if I think, but my grandma just took that to a whole nother level and just, I guess, was rubbing me down in mustard when I got sick as a kid. But I didn't know that until later. And then I had this natural like phobia of mustard. And then when my brother, who's 2 years older than me, used to, bully me as a kid, just like all big brothers do, he used to hold me down and put mustard in his mouth and spit a string of mustard that would almost hit my face. And then he would suck it back up, but sometimes it would land on my face. So his saliva mixed in with mustard in my nose and mouth as a 5-year-old, 4-year-old, 25-year-old. Sometimes he'd bully me. No. But he could still bully me if he wanted to. He has that big brother effect, and he's a technician beyond me. So
it's just been nothing but trauma with mustard, man. That's crazy. Dude, you know what's funny? You know what I just realized? You've played this game before.
But we did this interview
we did this in 2017. It's funny because I always forget when exactly I implemented the pummel game into the show, and I always tend to think it was later. I keep thinking it was like 2019, but you totally gave that answer before.
I probably gave you the same answer.
And
we're gonna have to see.
It just dawned on me.
If I've deviated.
Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure it was the same thing. Dude, that's so funny, man. I've struggled to remember like which guests have done the pummel before and which haven't. But hey, you know what? 2017 to 2023, we're it's been a while, so we'll probably get some different answers somewhere in here.
It's a lifetime ago when you consider.
Oh yeah,
like just everything that happened.
Oh man, yeah, totally. What's an embarrassing song that you like?
An embarrassing song that I like. Oh, there's a bunch now that I got kids. I mean, it used to be I guess the soundtrack for Moana would be Now.
Yeah.
Because of my daughter and stuff. But like, I guess back when I would just like, I'd close the windows and blare it. Maybe, I don't know. I still like, I like 90s punk rock.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's what I kind of grew up with. Yeah, so I guess I'll still blast some like No Effects or Blink 182, even though I'm in my 40s. Yeah. And it's kind of, but no, I mean, I still can proudly say I'm like 90s pop punk.
That's awesome. I love that, dude. Yeah. I was big into that when I was younger too, man. It's funny. There's Blink 182 is doing like a reunion tour thing or like a reunion show. There's been tons of memes about that, about like guys in their like guys our age, like late 30s, 40s, who are like dressing in the way that they did in high school and going to the shows and stuff. It's
bleach my hair. Why don't I have to bleach my hair anymore? Because I got grays.
Now, did you bleach the whole thing or just the tips? Did you have the spiked tips that you bleached? Or
unfortunately, I did both. It depends on the year. Like, I think our whole wrestling team in high school, we were the Golden Bears was our like. So freshman to senior year, I lived with gold or blonde hair. So I kind of took that a little bit into college and the late 90s, early 2000s with the tips. So I started with like the full thing, and then I moved into a little bit more of a tasteful tips were for bleached and frosted.
Yeah,
delicately.
The frosted tips, dude. You know, it's funny. Yeah. I think that first started. I remember it first being a thing with Eminem when Eminem came out on the scene. Yeah. A lot of guys that were into like hip hop and stuff started bleaching their hair white, and then or blonde, anyways. And then later on, it became a kind of a punky thing too, where like there was the
So I don't know. I think it might have jumped the shark by the time it came back to like the punk thing, because I was in the 90s and like the early punk ska bands in this area, it was like bleaching your hair was like the norm.
Okay, so it's already going on. Okay,
in like Southern California skater, Ville. But yeah, I remember going to Nebraska in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then everyone was just starting to like, I don't know, the internet's changed things from a historical standpoint, where it might have taken, 6 to 8 months for something to matriculate to the Midwest from the coasts. Now it's like the day it happens. It might start in the Midwest, the cool thing, because the internet, it's instantaneous. So, I remember in the 90s going in 98, I think I went to Nebraska my freshman year, I had bleached hair, and it was like, this guy is a weird Californian. Yes. And then within like 1 year, my whole team had their bleached heads and they were all like, you set the trend, man. Trend starter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you first show up, I could see pre-internet. It's like, you ain't from around these parts, are you? Yeah, I totally get that. Who do you think's your favorite superhero?
Ooh, well, now that as a kid, it was different than now, because now I'm watching all the superhero shows and movies with my son. I like the show. Loki's the best show. Story. I love it. Yeah. Even though he's kind of a negative force.
Yeah, sure.
It's like everything opposite of what like Spider-Man stands for.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that I kind of like that a little bit. It's not like the cliche. Morally, he ends up centering himself in a good position. Like Loki's good. Yeah. But it takes a while to figure that out. Whereas there's Spider-Man and Iron Man. I would say Iron Man then, just because there's gray areas there. It's not just like Superman, where it's like this, like, I don't know, moral high ground. And sure, he has his own struggles, but a little too basic and hokey, where there's more to the human experience. You might get pulled different ways, and I like that. Iron Man deals with the ego side of it, and some of that, like, I understand a little bit, relate to a little more.
Yeah. I always relate to characters that are flawed. Yeah. I think I always enjoy them more. I always gravitate towards characters that don't necessarily have superpowers. So like your Iron Mans, your Batmans, things like that, where it's just like a regular dude who is training hard and learning and using technology and things like that.
But I like how those characters got an origin story. A lot of them, the ones that are like, don't have the superpowers, but there's more of like a character arc. Yes. But they didn't do that with what's his face, the one who just recently in that Marvel universe who could shoot an arrow really well.
Hawkeye?
He has like no superpowers. Hawkeye.
Yeah, Hawkeye. Like, sure.
What made him so special?
I know. Yeah.
Like, okay, he shoots an arrow, but he can't jump. He can't run fast. It's like, I guess I'll believe that he can stand toe to toe with.
No, Hawkeye's one I always like too. But yeah, you're right. I wish they would do like a more in-depth explanation, like who he is, where he came from. All that. I mean, they do have an origin, but it's not as rich as like a Batman or like an Iron Man. Yeah. I also loved Punisher. Punisher was always like one of my favorites. Great. Yeah, I loved Punisher. Yeah. But yeah, cool. No, that's awesome. Great choice, man. Iron Man's definitely a good choice. Now, if you could have your own superpower, what would you choose?
Ooh. You know what? I just asked my son this question at dinner like 2 nights ago.
Nice.
We have like random questions at night.
You guys do the pummel at dinner. I love it.
Oh man. I don't know. Like, I guess I could go a couple ways with that. Like Hulk would be awesome. Just to like I could let my neuroses go. I don't ever have to be technical about any grappling, fighting thing. I could just like smash,
smash through everything. Yeah.
Cause I think that's where most of this comes from. I have deficiencies, my knees, or I'm not strong. Most I've ever benched is like 175 in my life. I have a bad shoulder. So like I have physical deficiencies. I can move well, but I'm not strong where most people are, you know, I can't like pick people up well. So it's like, I've had to figure out ways and learn comprehensively what works best. So it's like, that's like neurotic, you know, you have to go through a lot to find that out.
Sure.
A lot of like mental masturbation that goes along with that. So it's like, Hulk would be rad. I just go boink or whatever way to win, you know, I could probably focus on other things.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would probably be a good one. But if it like correlates most with who I am, that I could relate with more rather than like what I wish as like will fill the void. I don't know, man. Just physical attribute, super power wise. I mean, flying would be rad.
Flying would be cool.
So I guess, yeah, I'm trying to think like a 6-year-old. Yeah. I mean, any flying superhero.
Flying would be cool.
Rad.
Yeah.
Because now that I can't jump, my knees are pretty bad. Jumping is pretty rough.
Yeah.
So, I want that.
For bad knees, another good one would be Wolverine's power. Just the constant regeneration. You know, I think for any,
does it? Yeah.
For any
built-in stem cells.
But then the question is, would you want to have the condition that you're already used to right now? Because you're already used to having bad knees, and you get around in your life fine.
That's true. Yeah.
But then you can fly. So that's kind of what, you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of the balance, man. It's like, do I want to have the regeneration of
regenerative or just like still be me, but fly?
Yeah. I
guess, I mean, Wolverine would be the best because then I could take the chances that I always want to take and not worry about the ramifications. Cause it's like, okay, so what if whatever, I try this move and break, I'll regenerate.
You tear your ACL and just come back to training tomorrow morning. You'll be fine.
Man, I wonder what it feels like that. I haven't had either ACL in like over a decade. So man, it's been a long time.
Wow. And
even when I had ACLs, they went. So it's like, I think my first ACL reconstruction I got, it didn't work. It it doesn't take. Sometimes there's a low percentage chance that you get rejected, your blood, whatever. Yeah. It doesn't get blood supply the way it should. It might have gotten injured within that first 8 weeks where your body tries to recognize it as part of your body and it takes a while. And I think I've had that out of the 4 ACL reconstructions I've had surgeries. I think 2 times they just didn't take. Oh. So it's like and now I don't have ACLs, I've torn them. So I've had like 6 ACL tears over my adulthood. So I really don't know what it feels like to have that kind of stability balancing on one foot or being able to second effort the right way. So when I do it, it hurts. You know, I have grinding with bone on bone and laxicity. Like Spencer Lee was able to win an NCAA title with no ACLs. I get it. You could still function. It's just you have to take on a different style and you have to take less chances. Yeah. So it's like you could still function. It's just like, man. So I kind of forget what that all feels like to be able to like execute the way that I remember when I was in my prime. That'd be like in my 20s, early 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. So that would be a hard one to choose then, of whether or not you'd want whether you want Wolverine's regeneration or flying. That's a deep one, man.
I would definitely wish I never got these injuries. So Wolverine, actually, let's go with Wolverine.
Go with Wolverine.
Thank you for leading me.
No, of course. No. I just figured, man, you were talking about the knees, man, and the flying. So I figured, hey, man. Final question for the pummel game. If a zombie apocalypse breaks out right now, what's the first thing you do?
I mean, family, right? I got to like rally the troops, pick them up from school, I guess. I grabbed like, oh man, I got to go weapons first.
Yeah. You got to figure out how to fight these hordes of zombies off when you pick up the kids.
I got a tank of gas first.
Okay. Good call.
Drive up to the mountains. Fortify structure and live out the rest of the days. I don't know. Yeah, I think that would be it.
That's a good one. That's a good one, man. Yeah. I like that you thought about tank of gas because I can imagine there's so many days where I leave the house and I don't even realize I'm almost on empty just because I was being lazy the day before to fill it up. But yeah, good call on thinking of the gas and being mindful of that. So, and man, Justin, with that question, you've completed the pummel game. Congratulations, you win. You got your double underhooks for the second time. So congratulations.
It's probably the same answers I gave last time. So
man, you know what? It's been so long.
Genuine.
If it wasn't for the mustard story, it's just when you first said it, I was laughing, but then I was like, wait a second, someone. And then it dawned on me. I asked you that question before. Yeah, totally.
So next time, maybe not that question.
Well, I was thinking,
what's the animal you're most scared of?
Yeah. I was also thinking, like, who else would have had a crazy mustard trauma story? You know what I mean? Like, that's just too. Yeah, you got to be one of the only people out there, man. Man, let me ask you this. So I wanted to pick your brain a little bit on the instructional that you have with us. You have a great instructional with us about sacrifice throws. For the people that don't know what a sacrifice throw is, can you describe that, or describe what exactly that means?
Sure. It's one of the classifications of judo takedowns where most jiu-jitsu people know how to like sit down and pull guard and go to their back as a first move rather than being forced there, getting taken down there. So these takedowns kind of accentuate that path where you go to your back to push them over in a circle to their back, like sumi gaishi or obitori gaishi or hikomi gaishi, where you have a grip and you use your foot or leg in between their legs to kind of kick them over in the right spot, not in, of course, their private parts, but just adjacent. And then tomoe nage is where you put your foot in their abdomen and kick them over, kind of like John Wayne or Captain Kirk used to do. I know I'm dating myself with my references, but it was my favorite technique in judo was Yoko tomoe nage. So being able to safely execute a takedown that the worst position it puts me in is into a good guard. So that's kind of like the perfect transitionary step from jiu-jitsu to judo, where that's where you could like enter a portal that gives you more of maybe me, where that's my Takui Waza. That's my favorite move than maybe Uchimata. But that's like a good first portal. If you want to like buy that BJJ Fanatics safe sacrifice throws and kind of introduce yourself to, or myself to you, and you're able to see the way I teach a little bit maybe and how these techniques could relate to your style. And then it moves broadly outwards from there. I have my own website with JFlow Academy that has, I think, 13 or 14 different series, is just like the safe sacrifice throws. It's like powerful pummels and awesome ashiwaza and arm bars from A to Z, all these different like series where you could, pick up 20 videos within that series and even just learn a few concepts and be better for it, So I'm just trying to create as much content as possible and have it palatable for the masses in a way where they could walk away maybe enriched or just thought provoked in a way that they haven't, maybe gone about in their grappling or combat career, or so it could be more of the same, where they might pick up a new detail on a move within that spectrum. So, it's kind of for everyone. And I have, I kind of rate them from 1 to 20. Usually the series have about 15 or 20 videos in it. The ones I start with is like, the easier ones, the ones that are building the foundation. And the last videos are like, the professional, you've mastered a lot, and let's go for these high niche takedowns where you have to thread a needle, but it'll be there if you do it right. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing.
That's outstanding, man. I love that. Well, no, on with the self-sacrifice throws, what's the risk level of using them? Like, can they be pretty low risk in regards to giving up bad positions if they fail?
Definitely. So, tripod sweeps, different guard play, kanto chokes, all these different. If you end up with your foot in someone's abdomen falling backwards, you're going to be safe. Yeah. If you understand guard play, you have De La Hiva, Spider, all that, you have a sleeve lapel, you have what you need to function. So the only time I would say like doing a sacrifice throw is going to put you in harm's way is if they time it. If they time it and they're able to like shelf your leg across or kind of jump over it athletically or do a base out low and pass. But that's just like, basic, any moves can be countered. It's just how good is your setup? How good is your tai sabaki, your balance breaking Kazushi, all these different elements that I bring into play within the series. So, knowing a move is cool, but how do you implement it on an opponent who doesn't want it done to them? And what if it doesn't work? What do I do then? Okay, you have different guard X, Y, Z. So that's kind of, I want to have options for people. And I think the best portal to reach most jiu-jitsu players, even though I don't classify myself as like a jiu-jitsuka, a jiu-jitero or whatever. You know, I'm more of like a judo wrestler who's transitioned into a lifelong jiu-jitsu player. I like that the most nowadays. But that's not my base. These are moves that will seamlessly integrate. And if you spend some time practicing them, you're going to be able to use them on unknowing and unwilling opponents, because it comes from a different paradigm possibly, and not something that's highly practiced in like classic BJJ. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. You know, I had a really important person in my life. I don't even remember their name, to be honest, but they came and spoke at my college, and they talked about paradigm paralysis and paradigms, just what a paradigm is. And like, it's like almost a domain within society where there's a conventional wisdom and there's jobs created within it, and there's an understanding of how things work, and there's some innovation within it. But most of the innovation within that domain, whether it's like, I don't know, whatever sport or business or actual domain we're talking about here, a lot of the innovations come from without, not from within. So it's like something out on the outer cusp of that paradigm where there's relatability, and you could kind of cross over to different fields of understanding and extrapolate what works for that field and use it in a different fields. So that's kind of how I've thought about myself within my role as a coach. It's like, you're not going to come to me for like the most classic basic approach of, you know, how to pass a guard or do a throw, but the way it'll implement in live goes and your body type and those little intangibles is where I feel like I step in and have more of an understanding for, you know, athletes, rather than like, okay, here's this one discipline, do this forever. It should work within itself. But the second you step outside of that discipline, it's like, if you go out on a street fight and you pull guard, you're probably in trouble. It's like, hey, but over at practice, that's what I do every time. So, you know, trying to figure out a way for everyone.
That's incredible. I love it, man. Well, you know, I really, really enjoyed this instructional. For the people out there that haven't seen it or that are interested, it's called Self-Sacrifice Throws for BJJ. It's available right now at bjjfanatics.com. And you know what I loved about this instructional so much was that rather than throwing out tons of options, you went with 2 techniques to show, but you really went deep on each one. You covered gripping options, responses that your opponents could be throwing your way when they're defending, and much more. But I really did appreciate the fact that ultimately you went with 2 techniques and you just dove really deep on those 2 options, kind of an A-B option, rather than throwing out 100 techniques and things that you could be doing. So kudos to you, man. It was a very well done instructional. Yeah, and I really do recommend everyone check it out.
Thank you very much.
Of course, man. Man, Justin, in closing, what are some major goals that you have for 2023? What are some things you hope to accomplish this year?
I want to grow my website a little bit more, different ways, creating an application probably to have it a little bit more streamlined and get it in everyone's hand rather than like a website, kind of like a classic website. Also, in regards to my athletes that I'm training, I want to be able to, so I have groups of high school wrestlers. I have groups of black belts of jiu-jitsu athletes. I have groups of MMA fighters. It's just get them steadily better. And, you know, when their competition days come, you know, this year, fights or jiu-jitsu competitions or judo competitions or wrestling events, that they're making gains. That's all I could hope for. You know, it's like they take a step back physically or mentally, we could work on that. But technically, that's where we got to make those gains. So having that take precedent over, you know, anything else, just getting these athletes to a higher level and standard where they could feel like they could go teach it. Because a lot of the people I teach are teachers. So I instruct a lot of instructors so they could, you know, well-round their student base with takedowns or transitions that are a little more unfamiliar with their classic discipline. So it's helping them get to a level where they could teach it. That's like how I want to kind of like cast my net.
That's outstanding, man. Excellent goals, man. That's really awesome. Well, folks, unfortunately, we are fresh out of time. Man, Justin, it is always a blast getting to talk with you. I always learn so much getting to pick your brain, and I appreciate being generous with your time. I know you have a very busy schedule between coaching, being a dad, being with your kids. I really do appreciate your generosity today with your time, and you're welcome back on the show anytime you'd love to come back. Thank you, Ryan. It was a pleasure, humbled and honored. Hour and 45 minutes.
Probably, you know me better than a lot of my best friends. So
that's awesome. I really do appreciate it. For anyone out there that wants to keep up with Justin, it's real easy to do so. He's active on Facebook. Facebook's just his name, Justin Flores. For Instagram, it's JFlow Judo, JFLO Judo. Make sure you guys are following him there. He puts up a lot of great content, so keep up with his social media. He's also active on YouTube, JFlow Productions. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit the little bell icon to get notified when new videos get added. His website is jflowacademy.com. That's a great place to keep up with his seminars and information and instructionals and things that he has there. And then speaking of instructionals, if you guys want to learn from him remotely, you can learn here at BJJFanatics.com. He has an outstanding instructional called Safe Sacrifice Throws for BJJ. Earlier I said self-sacrifice. It's Safe Sacrifice Throws for BJJ, and it's available right now at BJJFanatics.com. And I really do recommend it. It's a great starting point if you guys are trying to implement some judo into your game. So check that out. And that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in. Please stay tuned for the next episode of the BJJ Fanatics podcast.